If you are listening to this in real time in March 2025, please do not sleep on my 3-day entrepreneur challenge that's happening next week. It's one of my favorite challenges that I've ever run. Basically, I consider it my second book, right? My first book is Freedom Fund. My second book, I really consider to be my 3-day entrepreneur workbook. It took me a long time to create this workbook. Has a lot of thought leadership in it and really my concepts around how to work 3 days a week as a female entrepreneur. So make sure you get this workbook, and I am going live 3 days, and make sure you come to the lives, because the lives are really, I feel like, transformative breakthrough sessions where we're able to really make breakthroughs on what's holding you back from doing that 3-day work week, from making that 6-figure a year. Blech, blech. My mouth is still waking up today. You know what it is I blame it on? I blame it on the cold. We are having a cold snap in San Diego, and don't come at me, but it's like 60 degrees. And so I've been wearing my long underwear under my pants. I've been wearing my beanie. I've been wearing like 3 jackets. We've got to stay warm over here. My body was not made for this, okay? Anyway, I digress. I am so excited to do a training for you today on 5 things you need to memorize to sign more clients in your business. This is kind of an interesting concept because you might see me now in my business and I am not actively memorizing a lot of things, but at the start of my business, I did do some rote memorization and just memorize stuff, almost like in college. Did you guys use flashcards and index cards and cram for tests? I sure did. I did a ton of memorization. And I think I just want to normalize this because even though you don't see me memorizing stuff now, at the start of my business, I did do a lot of studying and memorization when it came to sales. So I just wanted to talk through 5 things that you really should have memorized in your business to make it easier on yourself, right? I think scripts and memorizing things gets a bad rap because maybe we're confusing it with saying you have to memorize other people's ways of doing things. But you'll see what I'm encouraging you to do here is memorize basically the best version of yourself, right? Because at the start of our business or at the start of selling a new program, when we're nervous, when we're interacting with potential clients, we actually have to have a script in order to sound more like ourselves. Right? Because what I find is that women, heart-centered entrepreneurs in the sales process, because they don't want to be spammy, because they're nervous, because they're not feeling like they really deserve earning $200 an hour or whatever, right? They're almost like a shell of themselves. They're not really their confident self. Have you seen that meme that talks about when you're with a boy that you don't like, and then it shows a girl who's super confident, and then it's when you're with a boy that you do like, and you're just kind of awkward or cold, right? I think it's true. When we're comfortable, when we're feeling safe, it's super easy to be ourselves. But when we are doing something new, when we are nervous, when we are doubting ourselves, I think that scripts, again, can make us sound more like ourselves. So I'm not saying you need to follow my script, but one of the biggest reasons in my mastermind that I give women sales scripts is because number one, we're both heart-centered entrepreneurs. So what I would say is probably what you would say, right? But also because you can use something and tweak it from there. Okay, let's get into the 5 things that you should or could memorize to help you make more sales. I'm just going to say them and then I'm going to dive into them individually. Number 1 is your prices. Number 2 is your programs. Number 3 is your questions on sales calls. Number 4 is your responses to objections. And number 5 is your one-liner. I'm going to say it one more time. Your prices, your programs, your questions on sales calls, your answers to objections, and your one-liner. So in order to memorize these things, you have to write them down. In order to write them down, you have to decide them. I think this is why business is so hard at the start. I remember writing my one-liner and being like, why is this so hard? It should be easy. It's not because it's a lot of decisions, right? When you make your one-liner, you're deciding your title. What should I call myself, right? You're deciding the main marketing outcome that you're marketing to. You're making all these micro decisions, and micro decisions can be hard. And then having to own it, not just deciding I'm going to charge $3,000 for this package, but saying it out loud, I'm charging $3,000 for this package, right? So I just think there's so much wrapped up in this, and why I love encouraging my clients to memorize this stuff is it really causes you to fully own it, fully integrate it, fully believe that you're worthy of it, and find full confidence in it. So no matter what phase you're in your business, if I gave you a pop quiz, would you be able to spit out all these things perfectly? And again, these things shift as we grow in our business. We up level our prices, right? As we get to know our audience better, we change our messaging, we change our marketing. So I just think it's useful to realize that at every point, we probably should be memorizing these things. Okay, let's talk about the first one, your prices, your prices. How many times have I asked someone, okay, how much is your package? And they're like, hold on, let me look it up. Excuse me, you should not have to look that up. You should know. And you should be able to say confidently back, it's $3,000, right? Can you say that out loud right now? Wherever you're at, unless you're like a gymnastics practice and someone's going to side eye you, what do you charge? What's your main offer? How much does it cost? It should just be a number. There shouldn't be a disclaimer, right? And I also want you to practice out loud the price that you will be charging at your next price bump. So maybe you charge $3,000 right now, and next you're wanting to bump it to $4,500, right? I want you to look in the mirror and say out loud, my website design package is $4,500, right? Or my website design package is $1,200. Right? How do you like to say it? Do you like to say 12K? Do you like to say 1,200? Do you like to say the payment plan? Do you like to say, or 4 payments of blah, 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 right? However you like to say your price, say it out loud. I encourage you to say it out loud right now 10 times. Literally, pause this podcast episode and try it. Try rehearsing and memorizing not just your price right now, but what your price will be next at the next price bump. Okay? This is so important. It's so important. Again, not just knowing it and deciding it, but I think when we speak things out, shift happens and something happens in the universe. This is why I love my mastermind calls so much, because when the women say their questions, even before the mastermind sisters give their input, even before I give my coaching, I notice something shifting for them, because number one, they're stating it with pride, right? For themselves. And I just think there's something powerful about that. Okay, next let's talk about, one more thing on prices. If you have a fairly complex business, maybe it's a done-for-you business, I'm a big fan of, whether you have a coaching or done-for-you business, having standardized prices and packages, really programmizing your offers so that you have just 1 or 2 main offers. I used to say 3, but now I'm like, you know what? You really should have 2 main ways of making money, up to $1 million, right? 2 main offers, 2 main programs, really refining them, streamlining, optimizing them. But for whatever reason, let's say you have more packages than 2, you don't necessarily have to memorize it, but keep it somewhere where it's very easy to find. Okay, is it taped on your computer on a Post-it note like that, right? When someone asks you what your prices are, you should not have to go very far to find them. You should be confident, you should be grounded, you should be able to say your prices. And again, if you need a pricing cheat sheet, sure, right? But ideally, we're having those memorized. Okay, number 2 is your programs. So when it comes to the deliverables of your program, right? Does your group program come with 9 coaching calls? Does it come with Slack support? Like, what are the deliverables? Have those memorized. Have them memorized in a very, very brief way. Literally, and I would write it first and then memorize it so that you're not saying more or less than you want to say. I would also memorize your program outcomes, right? Like when you think about your program promise, what is it getting that person in 12 weeks to blah, blah, blah. This may also just be the subtitle of your program, so that's fine. But really making sure you're saying it concise, right? Concise equals confidence. Okay, next is your sales questions. I'm a big fan of memorizing the script for your whole sales call. And again, it doesn't have to be my script. It can be your script. Like, what are the words that you would say on a sales call when you're most confident, when you're most grounded? And I really, again, would do the thing where like I printed it out and then I would cut it into strips so that I could memorize my questions, and then I would like test myself, whatever you like to do for memorization. The easiest for me to memorize, now I'm working on my Spanish, is to be able to have it in small enough pieces, like a 3x5 card, and then be able to turn it over so I can test myself without looking. And this is why in the mastermind, we do practice sales calls, because I'm a big fan of learning by doing. Okay. Oh, so back to that, memorizing, like the most key things to memorize in your sales conversation are your opening line, being intentional about that, your transitional line when you're transitioning more to the sales part, your closing line, what do you say if they say yes? What do you say if they say no, right? And your questions. What questions do you like to ask? Not that you can't have this in front of you while you're doing the sales call as like a backup, but I would really try to memorize it. And then related to that, number 4 is what you say to objections, right? Be prepared, because I think you're going to be more willing to ask for objections. What are your hesitations? What's holding you back from saying yes to this offer, this program, this course? When you're prepared, when you know if they say time, if you know if they say, I've tried other things and it hasn't worked, you know if they say money, right? You know what you'll say back. And I talk about this in my sales call masterclass. I think it's like $97 or something like that. I give practical examples of exactly what I like to say back on a sales call, but you can craft your own answers. But I'm encouraging you to memorize your answers to objections. Okay, and then finally, what you do, your one-liner. How do you articulate, whether you are being interviewed on a podcast, whether you are connecting with someone on a coffee chat, how are you articulating what your business does? And again, this is something that morphs over time, so permission to rewrite it, but memorize it. Memorize it. Think about how much stuff you memorize in school, in high school, in college. So much. And now I'm just asking you to do like 1 hour of memory work, right? And really, I feel like it'll serve you. And what it served me when I memorized this stuff is now it turned from my memory to being more natural. It almost reminds me of, you guys know I grew up doing acting and doing plays. And at first, it's a lot of hard work to memorize a script. It's kind of a pain in the booty, right? But then once you memorize the words, it almost becomes you, and then you can express it and it becomes part of yourself, right? I feel that same way about my sales scripts, right? Now they really are my scripts, but it doesn't even feel like it, because I'm just saying the most confident version of what's on my heart. I'm not relying on my like emotions in the moment, right? Your emotions in the moment when you're on a sales call might be shy, might be embarrassed, might be afraid, right? You're relying on that rehearsed part of you, right? That practice part of you, and your sales, your client acquisition is something that's worth spending time preparing for, so that you can feel calm. And then you can say, like for me, I don't say exactly everything that I've memorized from the sales call, if that makes sense, but I end up seeing the parts that feel appropriate, right? It's almost like, if my sales call is made up of like 25 memorized flashcards, I might use 10 of them during any one given sales call, but as like a puzzle piece, I get to pull the pieces that feel the most appropriate, right? I get to pull the questions that feel like they're the most matching for it. So I know this one is more homework based, but I really feel like this is something you can do if you're like, and I want to make more money yesterday, I want to sign more clients yesterday. Have you memorized the things that you're trying to sell? Have you memorized the way that you're trying to sell? If you were hiring yourself as your saleswoman, these are some of the things you might ask yourself to do, right? So let's walk our talk. Let's do it. And I would love to hear from you what's something you're committing this week to memorizing. Maybe just pick one. Is it your prices? Is it your programs? Is it your sales questions? Is it your answers to objections? Is it your one-liner? Start with one, and maybe you pick one thing for the next 5 weeks. Again, go back to high school study vibes. Use those really cool flashcards with the like ring binder on the corner. Take out your highlighter, make it fun, right? But know that this is essential. Your program, your business deserves it. And you know that I'm just going to tell you what has worked for me. And I know that it'll work for you too. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And don't forget to join me in the 3-Day Entrepreneur Challenge.